King, take us back to like the '90s though for a second. Like, why do you think it was such a boys' club back then?
Even the 2000s, even the 2010, like even when we came up, started touring, 2010 to 2015. I mean, still.
Very interesting. I don't know. I just, I'm gonna go back to say late '80s. Growing up in Philly, growing up with Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince, DJ Miz, Cash Money. Like, we all grew up in the same area. It's like it's always been a kind of male machismo um, uh, thing. It's like you go to the block party and there's the DJ, and it just never was. It just never was a place. It didn't seem like a place for a female to kind of step up and get on the turntables. But there were plenty of female MCs.
For sure, I was
You
thinking
just
vocalists.
didn't hear a lot about. Yeah, you just didn't hear a lot about the female MCs on the same level, but they were there. They did exist. But as far as DJs, it didn't come until say the mid '90s when you got to give it up to Dehoda. You got to give.
Oh yeah, Super Janes.
The whole Super Jane crew in Chicago. That was the first time I really visually saw on a level of kind of in the landscape of everyone's eyes in the rave scene. They were really putting it down and killing it. Heather still to this day is one of my favorite.
One of our favorites too.
Technically, her selection, just everything about
energy,
Black Cherry.
I ended up in the West Coast in near Los Angeles for college, the Claremont colleges, and man, those years '99 to 2003, Heather was such a favorite in Los Angeles at the tropical parties and more. Shout out Ben Anand and those guys.
Yes,
but she would come regularly, and forget it, we would take that drive.
In Boston too. In Boston too, early 2000s, she would play every 3 or 4 times a year at the Sunday house music party. She would always come and do.
And then you had DJ Cosmo, Colleen Murphy, and she's living in New York and doing her thing, and then playing with Dave Mancuso at the Loft.
Yeah.
And so you had pockets of, in certain areas you had female. I hate to say the word female DJs, but since we're on the subject, female DJs doing their thing.
Yeah.
But it definitely now there's no stopping that.
About it.
It's such a beautiful thing to see.
I think throughout the entirety of my career, it's always been asked really often, how does it feel being a female in a male-dominated industry, constantly, forever. But, the discourse changed within the last 4 years or 3-4 years, where now they go, and what can we do about it? That wasn't a part of the question. They just looked at it as I was just looked at as just an anomaly. What does it feel like? But no one pointed it out. How do we change it so there's more? Right. So we can change the landscape. And now people ask, the press asks, okay, how does it feel like being one of few? What do you think people, the press, promoters, whatever, what can people do to create a more even playing field for all people? And it's not regardless of, gender, race, whatever kind of identity that you have. We just reap the rewards of a more equal playing field because we get the most talent that way. We'll hear the best music if everyone has an opportunity.
I think, especially in music, because diverse perspectives, diverse sounds are what help music grow the most.
100%.
We need that cross pollination. We need those diverse ideas
But we also need the history to be taught, and so that's why, I bring it back to Blacktronica, giving the history of the beginnings of house music. I mean, I had Robert Owens in. We talked about. I had Pierre in, talking about the beginnings of acid house, and showing the lineage from the beginnings of house all the way to EDM. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of my students, they're into EDM, but they don't know the context of how house and real techno, Detroit techno, how it influenced and where it came from, the socio-political context of it. And it makes you think about the music in a different way. It makes you think about music as liberation and not as wallpaper.